Smell haunting explained. Hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Midnight Vibes. Here I bring you the creepiest stories, the strangest disappearances, and the most terrifying hauntings from all around the globe. Sometimes the scariest things in life are things we can't explain. So if you're ready to hear some spooky stuff, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell so you're always the first to know when I upload a new video. And tonight, we step into a quiet Pennsylvania neighborhood where one family's dream home turned into a nightmare. A story of strange sounds, foul odors, violent assaults, and a darkness that would bring Ed and Lorraine Warren to their doorstep. This is the Smurl haunting. In 1973, Jack and Janet Smurl moved their family into a duplex on Chase Street in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. At first, life seemed normal. It was a quaint home, a little older, a little run-down, but it had good bones. It was just what the young couple needed to start a family. They raised 3 children in that home, 2 boys and a girl, and they were happy. Sure, the home was a little isolated, cut off from the rest of the street by a large yard. The road itself was named after the previous owner, a man who had lived in the house for many years before passing away. But these minor quirks didn't bother the Smurls. It was perfect. Also, they thought. After a few months, strange things started happening. It was subtle at first. Jack and Janet would wake up and feel as if they were being watched. They would find scratches on their bodies, and their children complained of seeing strange figures at the foot of their beds. At first, Jack thought it was just an overactive imagination. Kids will be kids. And Janet put it down to old pipes and drafty windows. But then things started to escalate. One night, Janet was awakened by the sound of footsteps in the hallway, slow, deliberate steps coming from the direction of their youngest daughter's room. When she got up to investigate, she found the little girl standing at the door, scared, wide-eyed, and whispering about a cloaked figure that was trying to get in. Of course, Janet dismissed this as make-believe. She was just a child, after all. But later that night, she woke up again to the sound of knocking. Someone was tapping loudly on the wall beside the girl's bed. Again, Janet assumed it was just a branch tapping against the wall during the storm, just another creaky part of an old house. But then she noticed the paint on the wall was peeling away. Whoever or whatever was on the other side was really trying to get out. The following week, the activity increased. Objects moved. On their own, the family heard footsteps, knocks, whispers in the night. And then one day, the closet door in the youngest daughter's room flew open and wouldn't close. That's when the family knew they had a problem. For years, the family struggled to cope with the activity until finally they called on some help. After a priest visited and blessed the home, things seemed to settle down, only to start up again a few weeks later. It became too much for the family to bear, and eventually they left the home. That's when Ed and Lorraine Warren came into the picture. These two were famous paranormal investigators who traveled around the United States solving the most baffling supernatural mysteries. As soon as they stepped into the home, they knew it was special. to say it was haunted. They felt an overwhelming presence of evil within the walls. They felt tormented by unseen forces. Ed and Lorraine spent several days in the house documenting strange occurrences. The priest who had previously visited the house even joined them, hoping to uncover the source of the disturbance. According to Ed, the moment he entered the home, the temperature plummeted. It felt as though someone or something had just walked across his grave. Lorraine, who was a clairvoyant, saw a dark, hooded figure moving through the rooms, a tall, gaunt man wearing a long black coat and a hat. She also saw a woman in a Victorian nightgown pacing the halls and shaking her fist at the Warrens, warning them to leave. Other than these ghostly sightings, the team experienced strange phenomena. Objects flew across the room, crashing to the floor. The heavy antique mirror in the bathroom fell from the wall with no explanation, and disembodied voices echoed through the rooms, whispering secrets from beyond the grave. Once they heard footsteps behind them, like someone was walking right behind them. But when they turned around, there was no one there. They also witnessed shadow figures darting through peripheral vision. After a few days of investigation, the Warrens gathered all the evidence they could and prepared to leave, but not before performing a blessing and prayer to rid the home of evil. This was a standard procedure for the Warrens, a way to offer some peace to the troubled homes they visited. However, in this case, the activity only seemed to increase after their visit. Over the next few years, the Smurls continued to experience terrifying incidents. According to them, hundreds of events occurred, each more frightening than the last. One evening, Jack was awoken by a loud bang in the middle of the night. When he investigated, he found that someone had pushed all the furniture in the living room to the center of the room and arranged it in a circle. Another time, he and Janet were sitting in the kitchen when a vase on the shelf suddenly shattered, even though there was no sign of a struggle and nobody was near the shelf. Then there were the times when Jack and Janet would wake up to find scratch marks on their bodies. They would look at each other, confused, wondering if they had been attacked in the night. Their 3 children also had their share of terrifying encounters. The eldest son once went into the basement and saw the shadow figure standing at the foot of the stairs. When he screamed and ran away, the figure disappeared. The youngest daughter was playing in her room one afternoon when she saw a tall, thin man dressed in black clothes standing in the closet. When she screamed, the man vanished. As the activity continued, the priests the Smurls called in to perform exorcisms claimed that the entities in the house were responding to the prayers. While this may be seen as a positive sign by some, the Smurls believed that meant the entity was growing stronger, becoming more violent. Throughout all of this, skeptics claimed it was all a hoax, that the Smurls were making up the entire thing for attention. Others argued it was a case of mass hysteria, that the stress of living in a potentially haunted house caused the family to imagine all these terrible things. But the Smurls insisted they were telling the truth. What they experienced was real. It was all too much for the poor family, and eventually they left the house, choosing to rent it out instead of selling it. Now, you might think that should have been the end of it, but unfortunately, the Smurls would be hearing from the house again. A few years after they moved out, a tenant moved into the home. The Smurls weren't sure if the house was still haunted, but they were curious enough to ask the tenant if anything strange had happened. The answer was yes. There was definitely something lurking in the home. The new tenant, a single mother named Helen Acton, claimed that the house was full of dark energy, doors slammed shut. On their own, heavy objects moved, and sometimes she would feel a hand run through her hair. Then one night, she woke up and found claw marks on her body, just like the Smurls had described. She was terrified. Helen contacted the Smurls, and together they confronted the house, demanding answers. But all they got was silence. The home wasn't talking anymore. It had become even darker and more sinister than before. The entity seemed to be taunting them, hiding its face in the shadows. Helen couldn't take it anymore. She packed her bags and fled the house. And that's when the Smurls decided to rent the home to none other than Ed and Lorraine Warren themselves. If anyone could solve this mystery, it was them. But as we now know, even the Warrens couldn't stop the activity. In fact, it only seemed to grow worse when they tried to intervene. So what exactly was going on in that house? Was it really haunted by a demon, as the Warrens believed, or was it all a trick of the light and the mind? There's no way to know for sure. All we have are the stories of those who experienced it firsthand and the theories of those who try to explain it away. The house still stands in West Pittston today, a quiet, ordinary duplex looking just like any other home on the street. But behind those closed doors, who knows what might be happening? Maybe the entity has grown tired of taunting visitors and now rests peacefully in its eternal darkness. Or perhaps it's waiting for its next victim, watching patiently for the unsuspecting to cross its path. I'll leave the decision up to you. You've been listening to Midnight Vibes. If you believe the Smurl story, let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more true horror and unsolved mysteries from around the world. Until next time, remember, sometimes the walls really do have a voice.